Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Hearthstone Rewind, our new series where we take a look at historical matches in Hearthstone history. And last week we took a look at the first ever World Championship where Firebat became World Champion. And today we are going to look at one of the most infamous series of games at Hearthstone World Championships ever between Amnesiac and Pavel, the infamous Paveling Book games. And yeah, this is, let's set the scene, get everything going. So this was during 2016. This was the third World Championships in Hearthstone history. We skipped over the last one. Maybe we'll cover that next week. But this was during the round of 16. Pavel and Amnesiac were paired up. The winner would go on to the final 8. And basically, the format different than the first World Championships. This one was Conquest. It was a best of 7, so you had to win with 4 classes. They brought 5 decks. And as you can see here, we have Amnesiac. He brought Druid, Mage, Hunter, and Warlock. Pavel brought Druid, Mage, Rogue, and Hunter. And both had banned Shaman. They were mid-range Shaman was the absolute juggernaut deck of the time. So both had banned it. And the series started really roughly for Pavel. Amnesiac won the first 3 games of the series, going up 3-0. So Pavel would have to reverse sweep to beat Amnesiac's Druid 4 times in a row. And it started, I believe, with the Mirror and then transitioned onwards. And yeah, this is well known for one main reason, and that's Paveling Book, the Mage Druid matchup. So we're going to start there. Amnesiac queued up his Druid into Pavel's Mage. He was still up 3-2. Pavel had halfway made the comeback, and it was very favored for Druid to win this matchup. And it started off really well, and then things kind of fell apart. And we'll go over that game, and then we'll go over the final game of the deciding who would move on to the World Championship Final 8. So let's skip ahead. Let's go straight into the action. What you want to see, Druid versus Mage. Here we have it. Amnesiac's Malagos Druid versus Pavel's Tempo Mage. And his list was quite unconventional. I remember at the time, people thought Paveling Book was a weird inclusion. I think he had the Faceless Summoner, the 6-mana 5/5 that would summon a random 3-drop, was kind of like out there. He definitely took some risks, and they paid off. We see Amnesiac starting off here with the Raven Idol, who's discover a spell or a minion. He pretty much always discover a spell, and he picks up additional burn removal with Living Roots. And Pavel, it's got a pretty good curve here with Mana Worm into Apprentice. We don't have cards like Magic Trick, Evocation, all these cheap 1-mana spells. It wasn't that easy to just go off with Apprentice on cheap spells. We got Amnesiac here looking to remove the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Even back then, when you didn't have all those cheap spells, you still prioritized killing Apprentice because, yeah, it can get your Mana Worm out of control, especially with cards like Arcane Intellect in hand. And you'll see that Amnesiac's holding a card called Cult Sorcerer. It's a 2-mana 3/2 minion at spell damage +1, and every time you cast a spell, it would buff your Cthulhu +1/+1. It was pretty much never run in a Cthulhu deck. It was literally just run for the spell damage. One of those interesting Cthulhu cards that was just so good, you would run it just for the ability. So Pavel here, he's got a decision. Does he tempo out a minion? Does he draw? It's kind of his 2 options here. One's off curve, but against Druid, you like to put on aggression. It's tough to make that decision. But Pavel, I think, makes the right choice here, putting on that minion curve. And as you can see in Amnesiac's hand, he's got double Azure Drake, Baron Geddon. Feral Rage was a pretty cool card. It was a choose 1 card. It was 3 mana, gain 4 attack, or gain, I believe, 8 armor. That was really like the go-to survival armor card for Druid until like Branching Paths and Ferocious Howl arrived. It was very solid, really, really good card. But yeah, now that those cards exist, not so much. But you can see that Pavel's really doing the tempo game, putting minion pressure on. Druid doesn't typically, especially back then, didn't have the greatest of AoEs. You had like Swipe and Wrath. He didn't run Starfall. And you could see Baron Geddon in Amnesiac's hand. That was there because, well, Shaman was so good that, you know, you would play Baron Geddon to try and deal with the Shaman boards, the totems, all of that. It's kind of a good way to remove. And yeah, Azure Drake Moonfire cleans up a little bit. And yeah, Amnesiac's answer Pavel's boards pretty well. There's just the Mana Worm left. It's only a 2/2 and no ramp for Amnesiac, which hurts, but, you know, he's fought for the board pretty well. It looks like he'll just Azure Drake, potentially Moonfire here, keep the board clean, and you're going to see the Faceless Summoners here. These were, yeah, kind of unconventional. Pavel had them in his lineup, and it's a 6-mana 5/5 that summons a random 3-drop. It was eventually banned from Arena, because it was such a good like tempo card. But yeah, just a way of getting stats on the board. And he's got Colosseum Manager, I think it's called. 3 mana 2/5. You hero power returns to your hand. That card was just garbage, but I mean, it's stats, not too bad. So Pavel can finally ramp here. He's got Mire Keeper, one of the older ramp cards. It's a 4 mana 3/3. You have to choose one, either summon a 2/2 or gain a mana crystal. It's a good option to ramp back in the day, and you could build a bit of a board with it. So Raven Idol for Amnesiac. He's got some removal options here. Savage Roar probably not going to do too much, but Wrath and Moonfire are pretty solid, especially with Azure Drake on board. You could draw, just remove. Plenty of options. And yeah, this series was quite interesting. I remember going into the World Championships. Amnesiac was a huge favorite. Nicknamed Young Savage. You know, he's the super young Hearthstone prodigy. I can't remember how young he was during this. He was like just a teenager, and people were thinking he was going to take it all. I think he was part of Team NRG. He was just a really top player, and you know, things are looking pretty good, but quite the high roll there for Pavel getting a Felguard. That's one of the best 3-drops in the game, like outside of like Mukla and Injured Blade Master at the time. So Amnesiac doesn't have a really good play here. He's just going to drop the Baron Geddon, you know, and Pavel's in a pretty decent spot. Looks like he's just going to draw, play the Azure Drake, keep tempoing out, keep putting minion pressure. It's the best way to do. Like, this is Tempo Mage back in these days was more of a minion-based, much more minion-based deck than what we see today, where it's a lot of just generate a bunch of random spells, and your minions are basically like Apprentice, a couple of spell damage minions, and like Jandis, right? You have like Flame Waker, you have the Faceless Summoners, Mana Worm, Apprentice, Firelands Portal would generate 5-drops. You know, there was a lot more minion-based stuff to it, and there wasn't that much generation. Even back here, you can see, again, we're not at the highest of RNG. We're summoning random 3-drops. We're discovering random spells, but it's basically been limited at that. You know, you can't really chain a bunch of infinite stuff. So it's interesting to see the players still have a pretty good idea of how to like hand read and all that kind of stuff. I think I had the audio off, so I'll have the audio on a bit in the background here. But anyways, pretty tough decision here for Amnesiac, but honestly, Ragnaros is such a pain in the ass for Mage to deal with. You could realistically just drop it here, and you know, good chance you're going to kill one of the minions, and then Pavel's got to expend his resources to answer it. But yeah, if it goes face, this could be pretty devastating for Amnesiac. Instead, he snipes the best target. Pretty damn good, so might just see like a Firelands here. Firelands clears up and you get a 5-drop develop, but I mean, you don't get a good 5-drop, it's pretty rough, but could go Flame Waker or Fireball. That's not fantastic. Azure Drake, Fireball's 1 damage off killing it. It's just awkward position here for Pavel. And you just kind of got to figure out, like, what's the best tempo line. Like, this is definitely a tempo mage deck. This was the quintessential definition of tempo, whereas we call small spell mage or tempo mage that these days. It's not really that much tempo. It's more just, you know, vomit a bunch of stuff. But then again, you know, you can tip out Mana Giants. That can be a pretty good tempo swing, especially Conjurer's Calling. But anyways, it looks like he's gonna go for the missiles here. They both go face. It's a pretty big deal. And they both go face. That's devastating for Pavel. Just one missile hits, he can ping it down, and this Rag doesn't do any more work, but huge swing. And now Amnesiac likely can take control here. He could go wide with Mire Keeper. He can draw a bit with Wraths. He's got to remove the Flame Waker for sure. So it's like you could Wrath for 1 and hit for 2. Mire Keeper potentially. There's a lot of options here. And definitely not the easiest of turns. Amnesiac will definitely have to think this one out. Emperor probably doesn't make any sense in this position. You can't really clear much. You get Emperor and Wrath and hope of 50-50 with your Rag, but that seems kind of unnecessary. And yeah, Ragnaros is in the deck. Basically, you would combo, like, discount all your spells, and when you draw Malagos, you just burn your opponent for a bunch. That was kind of the concept of the deck. Very old school. It wasn't so much OTKing your opponent with Malagos. It was, you know, you could potentially set that up if you have the time, but it's more getting that tempo in and playing Malagos or moving, and most decks just couldn't deal with that. And you kind of win the game from there, and looks like he's going to go for that play of just getting that 50-50, and he gets the 50-50 there, sniping the Flame Waker. So him just tempoing out the Ragnaros, snipe 2 minions in a row, which is very powerful back in the day, but now you just kill everything for free with random crap. So that was the fit, you know, that's high RNG back then, is Ragnaros shots, but yeah, that's like tame pretty much by comparison now. So Here we go. Amnesiac, top decks Malagos. There's no card in Pavel's deck that answers Malagos, by the way. Nothing. It's got Firelands Portal. And what does he top deck? Paveling Book. Add a random mage spell to your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, a meme is born. Paveling Book creates Polymorph. The absolute perfect card. I believe the only card that would actually answer Malagos back then. There was no other card that would ever answer it. And there was no answer. The game was over if he doesn't hit Polymorph. Instead, savagely gets onto the Savage Amnesiac with the Polymorph. Esports defined a generation of Hearthstone players inspired by Pavel. What does Amnesiac do? People forget about this. It's not just this Paveling Book. This isn't just the one that creates the meme of the Paveling Book. Wait until what the next top deck is for Pavel. I watched this game live. I remember it really well. It was ridiculous. Watch what Pavel's next top deck is, because it's an Emperor on the board. 5 health minion. Let's take a look at what Pavel's next top deck is, because again, he doesn't have a good answer for Emperor here. You know, and that can get out of control, although it's not hitting much, only Sylvanas and Innervate. Top decks another Paveling Book. And it literally gives him the perfect answer. Amnesiac's face is priceless, and it's ridiculous. As Raven says, it's not... You choose whatever card you want, apparently, for Paveling Book. It was Discover before the Wand Thief came around, pretty much. It was ridiculous. And that just puts Amnesiac so far behind now. That Malagos was unanswerable. That Emperor, there was no good answer unless you like Waker and Arcane Intellect into something. 2 Paveling Books in a row. Perfect answers. An esports moment. Skill incarnate. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I feel like this is when the esports, like, ridiculous RNG part of the competitive scene really began. Was Pavel recognizing the strength of cards like Paveling Book. The creation, because a lot of players hadn't really picked up on that. Like, I do remember people like, why is it bringing Paveling Book? It's just a random mage spell. It's a 1/1, but the value of random is just so powerful. Especially like mage spells, they're so good, and it just carried him here, and he's down 3-0 in the series, and he's putting Amnesiac on the brink of tying this, setting up a reverse sweep. So he's just got a tempo with Sylvanas, which literally just trades straight into this randomly generated mage minion. It's an Ethereal Conjure, 5 mana 6/3. It like discovered a mage spell. Didn't really see play, but wasn't bad. But yeah, now Pavel just develops the board, gets the Elemental on board, and Amnesiac's kind of just got not much left here. He's got the Arcane Giant in hand, but what's he gonna do? And we can see Pavel's got Ragnaros in hand. What's gonna happen here? What's going to happen when Amnesiac drops a giant? It's got 8 health, 8 attack. And well, Ragnaros, he likes to deal 8 damage to a random enemy target. So, yeah, Amnesiac just trying to find something to play. He's got Feral Rage. He can clear the Waker, play the giant, hope the giant can stick. But, yeah, Pavel's got this Ragnaros, and it's one of these things where Ragnaros, it either kills the giant and it wins, or it goes face and pretty much wins. It's like one of these things where it doesn't really matter the outcome here. Whether it snipes the giant, he's going to have to basically trade the giant in. But yeah, if this giant sniped, it's basically game over. Can Pavel win yet another flip? He does, destroying the giant. But again, it really didn't matter at this point. And yeah, now Amnesiac just has nothing left. Game's over. And the Paveling Book dream meme became a reality. And that's forced a Game 7. And again, Amnesiac was just that 1 win away from advancing. Pavel would go on to become world champion. Would Amnesiac become world champion if those Paveling Books don't create those ridiculous answers? So let's skip ahead to the deciding game. I love Pavel's deck here, by the way. Again, Amnesiac has to win with his Druid. He's lost 3 times in a row with it. Which is pretty brutal. But Pavel is playing a Miracle Malagos Rogue deck. It's sweet. You have Barnes in there to try and high roll Auctioneer or Malagos. So we got a Malagos Mirror. And yeah, this deck, you got Auctioneer. Of course, you have Edwin. And, you know, you're trying to just cycle through your deck. You have Sinister Strike to combo with your Malagos. And prep back here would give your spells -3. And interestingly, Amnesiac Raven Idols for minions. You see his hand is super spell heavy, so he goes for a minion. And he takes the Forbidden Ancient, I think it's called. That one would just consume all of your magic, or all your mana. So if you play like on turn 2, you would get a 3/3. He could like innervate coin the Forbidden Ancient, make it a big one. But again, he's facing Rogue. It's got Sap, so you don't really want to do that. And yeah, so far right now, Amnesiac's hand is really clunky. But it's important to note, the innervates in Amnesiac's hand give +2 mana crystals. If he draws something big, he can just innervate something huge out. He's got 5 mana in hand. Innervate was absolutely insane before it got nerfed. It was Lightning Bloom without Overload, and we all know how good that is. So Pavel top decks one of my favorite cards as well, Tomb Pillager. That was a 4 mana 5/4 minion. Death Rattle, add a coin to your hand. It was really good with Auctioneer. Good with your Edwins. You could do it with Questings. Arcane Giants, cheat those out. Really powerful card. One of my favorites. I crafted that gold and still have it to this day. And just enabled so many interesting things. And Amnesiac picks up Sylvanas, so it looks like he'll just ramp here so he can curve into Azure Drake and into Sylvanas. Not a bad curve. And Pavel plays the 4-drop, picks up Edwin, you know, might be able to pick up some fuel for it. Wasn't as much cheap generators like Lackeys and stuff like that. Edwin was not as easy to make big, but it was still a staple in like every rogue deck because it's still, you know, we have Shadows. If you have backstabs, you have coins, you can make it big. And Druid didn't really have many good hard removals. I think there might be Mulch. He might have Mulch in this list. I'm not entirely sure. But other than that, they didn't really, nobody ran Naturalize. Naturalize was just too big a downside. So Azure Drake, Moonfire comes down. Amnesiac's ahead on the board. And yeah, let's see what Pavel's got up his sleeve. He could go for an Edwin turn here. He's got like Shiv, could go backstab, Shiv, coin, backstab. Backstab, coin, Shiv, Edwin. He could do that if he wants, or he could just go with Barnes and see what he rolls. He could hit Auctioneer, start cycling, could hit Malagos, and he also has this 4 mana 4/5 minion that's a Druid card he got from his Swashbuckler. It would gain like +5 health or 10 health if you had played Cthulhu or something. Or your Cthulhu at a certain, I think was at an 8/8 or a 10/10. Didn't see a ton of play. He's just going to go for the Barnes, go for the random. Pavel likes to take the risks, and he hits Malagos, which is pretty good when you're holding a backstab, and there's an Azure Drake on board. That is a huge backstab, so pretty good roll. It's not insane. It's not as incredible as it looks because, you know, you can just hero power down, swipe it down, but it creates a threat he has to answer. And he didn't have a great way of dealing with the Azure Drake, but he could have gone backstab Shiv, clear the minion. It was interesting that he didn't take that line, get a big Edwin on the board, because it can be difficult. But maybe he's worried about Sylvanas on 6, which is in hand, and that is Amnesiac's curve, and you could be, you know, giving him a potential Edwin, right? Like this. So what do we got here? We got Amnesiac with a pretty tough turn. He might just get the Ragnaros out here, and then innervate a hero power and kill the Malagos, which can create, yeah, a pretty tough spot here. Outside of the Sap, I believe, there's not really a good answer. We don't have like a Vilespine Slayer. We don't have Ethereal Lackeys to create random removals. So we'll see what Pavel can do here. If he top decks something like Sap, he could do some real good work. Worst target hits the 1/1. And yeah, no answer here. So Pavel has some options here. He can just start trying to look for answers with Auctioneer. He can just build an Edwin to just fight on board. But again, it's likely going to get, it could get sniped, and looks like he's just going to dig. He's gonna Shiv. Maybe he's going to set up an Edwin play. He could draw Sap. You never know. He's got Eviscerate. He could just kill the Ragnaros if he wants. Just Shiv, Eviscerate, then the Barnes trees in. But he develops absolutely no tempo. But you might just want to do that, because how else are you going to deal with it? So he's going to face tank an Edwin. Much better play there. You know, you take the damage, but again, you get a big Edwin on the board. Get some proactive ability out there. Very smart. But again, there is that Sylvanas threat, which Amnesiac is holding on to. And likely he's just going to come down here, as it's pretty damn good. Amnesiac's also holding Fandral Staghelm. If you're not aware of what that card is, it's a 4-mana 3/5. It made all your choose one abilities active, so you could Feral Rage and gain 4 armor, or 4 attack and 8 armor, or, you know, Nourish and draw. It was basically the Rogue quest, right? Or the Druid quest when that's active. It was attached to a body, and it was pretty good back in the day. Doesn't really see much anymore, but yeah, it was solid. Basically, once Nourish got hit, it used to be 5 mana back here. You could play Fandral on 4 if it's stuck. You Nourished on 5 is incredible. But yeah, it looks like Pavel here. He picks up Prep. You can go for the Auctioneer play. I think you start with the Sinister Strike, because you can get a better mana cheat. You get an extra draw. Now you prep, see your options, because you can, like, prep Shiv. If you pick up the Sap, you can play it, but if you Shiv first, you don't. And he picks it up. Perfect. Absolute perfect top deck. And if Pavel doesn't Shiv first, if he preps first, he can't do that. So a very heads-up play to Shiv there. Some people would think to draw first with the Shiv and then prep, or draw with the prep first, but no, it's a really smart play. Yeah, Amnesiac's just really far behind. There's an Auctioneer on board. There's a Van Cleef on board. He can only answer one, so he gets to choose one effects going. He gains 4 attack, 8 armor, and Living Roots gives him 2 damage and 2 1/1s. And he's just trying to fight on board. He's down to 17 health. Pavel has 8 on board, 1 in hand. Definitely doesn't have it there, but he can go in on. He can go with the Auctioneer, Shadow Strike. No, I can't do that. Get to Shadow Strike. Drop the clock. So I can't remember what this thing's called. The Cthulhu card. He'll just drops the Yeti. It's a Yeti. It's stats. Amnesiac has no answer for this. He just has minions. He has absolutely no answer. The swipe top deck helps out a bit. But is he dead here? He's running very low on health. He's got 4, 5, 6 attack, and Eviscerate off the top would be lethal. He can just Fan and Knives here. If he wants, he can Sap. He can Shiv with Auctioneer. You just gotta Sap, take the board. He knows Amnesiac can't answer these minions. He sees how he's struggling, and, you know, it's looking pretty good for Pavel. And this game has definitely been a really well-played game by Pavel. The last one, kind of a clown fiesta. This game, pretty well piloted by Pavel. You know, he got lucky with the Malagos off Barnes, but again, it wasn't huge. And the top deck with Sap, he played to his outs really well. And this is lethal, I believe. 6 health. Yep, Shiv is lethal. Hero Power Shiv. And this elevated Pavel to the final 8 of the 2016 World Championships, where he would go on to defeat Dr. Hippie in the finals, becoming the 2016 World Champion. And it was just incredible to watch these games back. You know, it's ridiculous. People have, you know, dubbed the Paveling Book, or the Paveling Book, all that stuff. You know, Pavel got pretty damn lucky, but he also came back from a 3-0 deficit to beat one of the best players in the game. And, you know, at the time, and still, you know, Amnesiac did really well up until he retired from competitive last year. And, you know, Pavel became world champion, became a GM down the road, and even won a major tournament right after this. So, really good stuff. Crazy RNG, but compared to these days, seems kind of tame, doesn't it? But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what match should we look at next. Any of that stuff. This is a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Stay salty, my friends.